listening to Startup Multipliers, where trending startups take center stage.
Okay, let's dive into something that's really reshaping how we interact with technology. AI-powered voice.
Uh-huh.
It's popping up everywhere. Your smart speaker, audiobooks, that automated voice on the phone maybe.
Yeah, and it's getting incredibly good, incredibly fast.
It is.
It's quite a profound shift, actually. Just a few years ago, synthesized speech often sounded, well, clunky.
That's official.
Oh, totally robotic. Exactly. Now, AI is creating voices that are, virtually indistinguishable from human speech sometimes.
Yeah.
Capable of expressing emotion, nuance.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to kind of get past the hype. We want to understand what's really happening at the cutting edge.
Right.
What needs is this technology actually meeting right now? And maybe looking ahead, what can we realistically expect AI voice to be capable of?
Good questions.
We've pulled together a whole stack of sources, and honestly, they point strongly to one company that seems to be driving a lot of this advancement, ElevenLabs.
ElevenLabs is definitely a major player. Yeah, a big force in the AI audio space. They describe themselves as an AI audio research and technology company.
And their origin story is quite interesting. It's rooted in a pretty relatable problem, actually.
Oh.
The founders, Maciej Staniszewski and Piotr Dubkowski, they're Polish childhood friends, apparently.
Ah, okay.
And they were reportedly frustrated by the low quality of movie dubbing they experienced growing up in Poland.
And I can see that. Bad dubbing can really ruin a movie.
Right. And Piotr, one of the founders, he's even recognized on Time Magazine's AI Top 100 Innovators list.
Wow, okay. So that initial spark, that frustration, it led to a really ambitious mission.
Seems like it.
They aim to be, and this is their phrase, the voice of the digital world, and make speech the primary way we interact with tech. Ultimately, the goal is making all information accessible in any voice, any language, any sound.
That's massive. A huge undertaking.
It is.
And looking at the tech they've built, there's certainly creating the tools to chase that vision.
Yeah.
The sources highlight several core technologies.
Right. Right at the foundation is their text-to-speech, TTS capability.
Oh.
So turning written text into spoken audio. And they
Right.
have different models optimized for different needs.
Like what?
Well, there's multilingual V2, which they say is for the highest quality output, for stuff like content creation, audiobooks maybe.
Gotcha. High fidelity.
Exactly. And then there's Flash V2.5. That one's engineered for incredibly low latency, just 75 milliseconds, the sources say.
75 milliseconds. Wow, that's practically real time.
Pretty much.
That low latency must be critical, I imagine, for conversational AI.
Exactly. Yeah, if you're having a back and forth with an AI agent, you need those responses to feel immediate, not like, a slow internet connection lag.
Right, that kills the conversation flow.
Totally. And their TTS supports over 29 languages, which is obviously key for global reach.
Okay, so beyond just generic voices, they also offer voice cloning that lets you create synthetic models of real voices.
Yes. They started with a pretty small library, just 11 voices initially, but they've scaled dramatically. Over 2,000 diverse voices available now, according to the sources.
That's a lot of variety.
It is, and the reverse is also crucial. Speech-to-text, STT.
Right. Understanding spoken language.
Their automatic speech recognition, ASR, model is apparently highly accurate, 98% accuracy, the sources claim. And it includes valuable features like speaker diarization.
Which is?
That can identify and separate different speakers in an audio recording.
Ah, useful for meeting transcripts and stuff.
Exactly, and character-level timestamps, too, so you can pinpoint the exact timing of specific words or even letters.
Those details really matter if you're doing complex transcription or maybe analysis later.
For sure. They also have tools like a voice changer, which gives you control over delivery timing, inflection, emotion.
Fine-tuning the performance.
Yeah. And a dedicated dubbing studio for localizing audio content into many different languages while trying to preserve the original speaker's voice characteristics.
That preservation aspect sounds tricky but important.
Very. And interestingly, they've even stepped beyond just voice now. They have a sound effects model.
Oh. How does that work?
You generate sound effects just by describing them in text, like footsteps on gravel or distant siren.
Huh. So expanding beyond voice into the broader audio landscape.
Seems like it. Plus, there's a voice design tool for generating completely custom voices just from text descriptions. It's quite a comprehensive suite.
It really covers a lot of ground in audio AI.
Yeah.
And the scale of their usage is just incredible. millions of users, including employees at over 60% of Fortune 500 companies using their tools in some capacity.
Wow.
And get this, since January 2023 alone, their platform has generated over 1,000 years of AI audio content.
1,000 years. That number really jumped out at me, too. It's hard to even conceptualize.
I know. It breaks down to like over 1 million hours of localized content, another 1 million hours of text read aloud, and over 10 million sound effects generated.
That kind of volume, it just screams robust infrastructure needed.
Absolutely. Which brings us nicely to some of the key infrastructure and financial partnerships that have enabled this massive scaling, right?
Yeah.
The sources mention these.
Yes, their relationship with Stripe seems fundamental.
How so?
Well, Stripe handles their billing, which is crucial, especially with a usage-based pricing model, where the cost changes depending on how much audio people generate.
Right, that can get complicated fast.
It can. And Stripe allowed them to build a scalable, self-serve platform really quickly without getting bogged down in payment mechanics.
And Stripe isn't just processing payments for their main service, is it? It also powers their global voice marketplace.
Ah, yes, the marketplace. This is where voice actors, or really anyone, can license their voice for use in ElevenLabs models.
And earn passive income from it.
Exactly. And Stripe handles all the tricky back-end stuff for that marketplace.
Like what kind of stuff?
Licensing terms, rights management, the actual payments, international compliance, KYC, know your customer verification, payouts, fraud protection, the whole 9 yards.
Wow.
The sources say they've distributed over $5 million to contributors through this program already. Some people earning over $10,000 a month, apparently.
That's significant. And building all that payment and compliance infrastructure internally, that would have been a huge distraction from their core AI research.
A massive diversion of resources, yeah.
They also have a major partnership on the infrastructure side with Google Cloud.
Right. Making their models available on the Google Cloud Marketplace gives enterprise clients easy access.
Streamlines adoption for big companies.
Definitely. And they're leveraging Google Cloud's global infrastructure for deployment and scalability. Plus, integrating with Google's own AI services.
Like Gemini?
Yeah. The sources mention Gemini 2.0 Flash specifically, which is optimized for that low-latency conversational AI we were talking about. Fast responses, reasoning capabilities.
So it's like combining ElevenLabs' specialized voice tech with Google's broader AI power and cloud reach.
Exactly. Enhancing capabilities for things like customer engagement, automating workflows, scaling content creation, all that enterprise stuff.
It really shows how these partnerships are crucial for building the foundation needed to deploy this kind of AI globally and at scale.
Couldn't do it otherwise, likely.
So given all this capability, where are we actually seeing this technology being applied? Like in the real world today?
Yeah.
The sources gave a wide range of examples.
Yeah, conversational AI is a major one. They have a dedicated tool letting developers build custom interactive voice agents.
For what kinds of uses?
All sorts. Customer support bots, characters in games, educational tutors, sales agents, marketing tools.
Wow, okay.
And this tool apparently saw really rapid adoption. The sources mentioned over 250,000 agents were built in just the first 2 months after it launched.
250,000 agents. That's fast uptake.
Yeah.
They've been iterating quickly on that, haven't they? I saw mention of multimodal conversational AI.
Yes, introduced just recently, May 2025. And this is quite important, I think.
Why is that?
Because it moves beyond just voice in, voice out. These new agents can process both speech and text inputs at the same time.
Ah, so you can talk and type.
Exactly. The sources point out a key problem with voice-only interactions, trying to verbally relay complex stuff like serial numbers, long IDs, maybe even credit card details. It's awkward.
And prone to errors, right? Did it hear B or D?
Precisely. Transcription inaccuracies are a real issue there. Sometimes it's just way easier and more secure to type something sensitive or complicated.
Makes sense.
So by allowing users to type into, say, a companion text window while they're on a voice call, it dramatically improves accuracy. It makes completing complex tasks easier.
And probably feels more natural, too.
Creates a more natural flow, yeah. Kind of mimics how we might switch between speaking and typing in, like a Zoom call or a messaging app.
How is that integrated?
Various ways. They mention a web widget, SDKs for developers, and WebSocket for real-time communication.
Okay. Another new feature for conversational AI, also from May 2025. Batch calling.
Ah, yes, batch calling. This is all about scaling outbound communications.
So calling out to people.
Right. It lets businesses automate initiating hundreds, maybe even thousands of simultaneous phone calls.
What would you use that for?
Think large-scale alerts, automated surveys, perhaps personalized marketing messages sent out to a big customer list.
And you can personalize them?
Yeah, you can upload contact lists like from a CSV or Excel file with dynamic variables. So each call can be personalized with the recipient's name or maybe specific account info.
Okay. And how does it connect to phone lines?
It ties into existing telephony infrastructure. The
Yeah.
sources mention Twilio or standard SIP trunking.
Got it. So the key benefits there are increased capacity, obviously.
Huge capacity increase. Also, resource optimization. You don't need hundreds of human agents making repetitive calls. And ensuring consistent messaging across potentially millions of calls.
Okay, that makes sense for scale. Now, beyond direct interaction, another huge area mentioned was content localization and dubbing.
Yes, using tools like their dubbing studio. This seems like a core focus, going back to their origin story.
And there was a really high-profile example highlighted from February 2025, their work for the Polish presidency of the EU Council.
Right. They used AI dubbing to make press conferences available in Polish, English, and French simultaneously.
What was the goal there?
To broaden accessibility, basically. Help more people across Europe follow these important policy discussions easily in their own language or a common one.
And how did they do the voices? Were they generic?
They used either AI-generated voices or, interestingly, cloned voices of the actual speakers. They tried to preserve their unique tone and cadence.
So if the Polish minister spoke, the English dub would sound like him, but speaking English.
That was the aim, yeah. And these dubbed videos were then put on YouTube with multiple language tracks you could choose from.
Now, the sources seem to emphasize the due diligence involved there.
They did. A professional translation company verified the accuracy of the content,
Okay, that's important.
and there was clear disclosure that AI was being used. Transparency.
Good. What about the voice cloning aspect? Any safeguards?
Yes. The sources noted specific compliance measures. Explicit consent was obtained from anyone whose voice was cloned.
Crucial.
Strict limits were placed on using the voice only for those translations. They couldn't use it for anything else. People could withdraw their consent too.
Okay.
Plus safeguards against unauthorized cloning and adherence to GDPR standards. It seemed like a very conscious effort to address the ethical and legal angles.
That's reassuring. It shows they're thinking about the complexities.
It does. And there are other localization examples mentioned too. TBS, a Japanese broadcaster, using it for their KASO program for international viewers.
Right.
And LSLU, a South Korean tech company, integrating ElevenLabs dubbing with their own translation tech. So partnerships are key there too.
Okay, moving into media and entertainment more broadly. NBC CNI, a subsidiary of a major Korean broadcaster.
Yeah, they're using ElevenLabs TTS and also the sound effects models for producing commercial video content.
And this isn't just experimental stuff, right? It's winning awards.
Apparently so. This really demonstrates the creative potential. Their AI-produced content, like a video called Mateo, won the grand prize at the Korea International AI Film Festival.
Wow.
Another one, Art in the World, won the narrative category. So it shows AI isn't just for utility tasks anymore. It's becoming a tool for actual storytelling.
That's a significant step. And it's not just big broadcasters using it.
No, the sources mention partners in gaming too, like InWorld and Paradox Interactive, presumably for interactive agents or character voices.
Makes sense for games.
And well-known creative content creators like Lex Fridman, Andrew Huberman, Ariana Huffington. They're using the tools for things like voiceovers, maybe creating audio versions of their articles, dubbing their own content for wider reach.
So empowering individual creators as well.
Seems to be part of the picture. Another area with big impact is publishing and accessibility. Their 11 Reader app is a prime example here.
Right, the app that turns text into audio.
Exactly. Available on iOS and Android, lets users convert ebooks, PDFs, web articles, whatever, into audio. It hosts thousands of books narrated by AI.
And some are narrated in the voices of famous authors or personalities.
Yeah, like Maya Angelou, Deepak Chopra, Ariana Huffington again, Richard Feynman, quite a list, using their presumably authorized AI voices.
And what was that about iconic voices?
That's really interesting. The app also offers the ability to have any text content read aloud in the voices of iconic historical figures. Judy Garland, Sir Laurence Olivier, John Wayne, Burt Reynolds.
Huh. How does that work? Licensing. Estate permissions.
The sources don't detail the specifics of those agreements, but it definitely raises questions we can come back to later.
Okay. And there was a very specific recent example mentioned, Melania Trump's audiobook.
Yes, released May 2025. Her memoir, Melania, narrated by her official AI voice, powered by ElevenLabs tech, and available in that 11 Reader app.
Official AI voice. That implies direct authorization.
It does, and it's multilingual too, which
Yeah.
shows that blend of cloning and language capabilities.
This all ties into their accessibility efforts as well, doesn't it?
Correctly. Through their impact program, they provide their technology for free to organizations working with individuals who need voice assistance.
Like for people who have lost their ability to speak.
Exactly. They've partnered with groups like Bridging Voice and the Scott Morgan Foundation to provide AI voices to over 1,000 individuals with conditions like ALS, helping them reclaim a voice.
That's a genuinely powerful application of the technology.
Truly is.
So,
And just for a quick glimpse into something a bit more futuristic, the sources mention the Gibberlink project.
oh yeah, from a London hackathon back in February. What was that about?
It explores AI to AI communication. The idea is, instead of AI agents needing to convert information into human speech and then back again when talking to each other,
Which seems inefficient.
right, they can recognize they're both AIs and switch to a much more efficient sound-based language using something called Jigwave, a library for data over sound.
Data over sound. Like modem noises.
Kind of. The demo involved two AI agents booking a hotel. When they identified each other, they just emitted these short, data-packed sounds instead of speaking English. A bit like R2-D2, maybe.
And the purpose?
To save compute resources, save money, save time, cut out the human language intermediary step when AIs are just passing data between themselves.
So it's an open source proof of concept that shows a potential future where AI systems collaborate more efficiently behind the scenes.
Exactly. Before maybe presenting the final result back to a human. It went viral, apparently. Got people thinking.
Interesting. So they're enabling better communication with AI, but also potentially more efficient communication between AIs. Now, with all this rapid development and diverse application, how are they handling global expansion?
That's a key strategic focus. A significant move was establishing ElevenLabs GK in Tokyo, Japan, back in April 2025.
Their first international subsidiary outside Europe.
That's right.
Why Japan specifically?
The sources suggest Japan was chosen for its rich linguistic heritage, its technological innovation, and the potential they see there to bridge communication gaps and maybe even help preserve cultural narratives using voice AI.
And they plan to tailor the platform for Japan's specific needs.
Yes, addressing unique linguistic and cultural requirements. They appointed a local head, Hajime Jim Tamura, to lead that effort.
And this builds on existing partnerships they already had in Asia-Pacific.
Correct. With companies like Docomo Innovations, TBS, the broadcaster we mentioned, NBC, CNI in Korea, and LSLOU.
Okay. And of course, they maintain a strong base in Europe, right, given the founders' Polish roots.
Absolutely. Offices in London and Warsaw. They invested $11 million in Poland last year, support something called Project Europe, which backs European companies.
And partnerships with big European names, too.
Yeah, Deutsche Telekom, Bertelsmann, Bild were mentioned.
Operating across all these different regions must require really careful attention to data handling and compliance.
Oh, definitely. You can't just roll out tech like this everywhere without considering that.
And they seem to be focusing on this. I saw mention of European data residency.
Yes, introduced in May 2025 for their enterprise customers. It allows those clients to keep their data processed and stored within the EU, specifically to help them comply with local data sovereignty requirements like GDPR.
So it builds on their existing commitments.
Exactly. They already had SOC2 certification and stated GDPR compliance. This adds another layer for European clients concerned about where their data lives.
What other security features do they offer?
Things like an optional zero retention mode where no content or data is stored by ElevenLabs after processing, end-to-end encryption, and configurations that can support HIPAA compliance for healthcare enterprises in the U.S., which involves signing specific business associate agreements or B8As.
Right. And going back to that Polish EU presidency example, the sources really hammered home the compliance steps they took there.
They did. Explicit consent for voices, strict usage limits, the ability to withdraw consent, safeguards against misuse, review by government ministries. It shows they are actively navigating these complex regulatory landscapes.
It really seems they recognize that scaling globally isn't just about having cool tech. It's also about building trust through really robust data management and compliance.
You have to, especially with technology this sensitive.
So with all this incredible momentum, the funding, the global expansion, what's next on the horizon for ElevenLabs? And maybe more broadly, what does the sheer power of this technology force us to confront, especially around ethics?
Well, funding-wise, they recently secured a pretty significant $180 million in Series C funding. That was January 2025.
And that valued the company at?
$3.3 billion, so serious investment. And that funding is specifically earmarked for driving the next stage of AI audio development.
Meaning?
Supporting more research, especially into making voice AI even more expressive and controllable, expanding their tools globally, and importantly, strengthening their AI safety initiatives.
Safety seems like a recurring theme. What's their stated focus for 2025 specifically?
Making their platform more collaborative, opening up access to their research findings, advancing those conversational AI agents we talked about, bringing tools to mobile platforms.
Oh, mobile.
And really expanding language coverage, aiming to eventually serve all languages, accents, and dialects, with a particular push into Asia, Latin America, and EMEA, Europe, Middle East, Africa.
That makes sense, given the global mission.
Yeah.
But this rapid advancement, it naturally brings some significant ethical challenges to the surface, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and the sources address these directly.
There was one very public example, the AI radio host controversy, reported by the Sun newspaper.
Right. This involves an AI host named Thy on an Australian radio station, CADA. She was apparently on air for 6 months.
6 months?
Yeah, without clear disclosure to the listeners that she was actually AI.
Oof. How did that go down?
Not well. The controversy erupted when listeners found out and felt, misled or duped. Voice actors also criticized the lack of transparency, arguing the station should have been upfront.
What was the station's response?
The network, ARN, said they were exploring new tech, but that the trial actually reinforced the value of human personalities on air.
An interesting takeaway.
The sources note there weren't specific rules against it in Australia at the time, but the incident really highlighted the potential for deception and the strong public reaction against non-transparent AI use.
Yeah, transparency seems key. What about the use of famous or iconic voices? We touched on that with the Melania Trump audiobook and the 11 Reader app.
That's another complex area. The Melania Trump example is framed as using her official AI voice, which implies authorization.
Right.
But the broader capability, like offering Judy Garland's or John Wayne's voice for any text, that raises big questions about rights. Rights of publicity, rights of the estates of deceased individuals.
Consent, essentially. Who gets to decide if a public figure's voice can be cloned and used, especially after they're gone?
Exactly. The implications are significant. And the sources also outline broader ethical concerns surrounding AI that are particularly relevant here. Well, the potential for job displacement, that's a big one, especially for professionals in voice acting, narration, maybe translation, even customer service, as AI gets better and cheaper.
Yeah, that's a worry you hear a lot with AI generally.
Privacy is another major concern. The sources mention potential legal challenges and privacy implications if data from personal accounts, maybe even private conversations, were somehow used for training AI models.
Though frameworks like GDPR in Europe offer some protection there.
They offer some, yes, but enforcement and interpretation are ongoing challenges. And then there's the really critical issue of misinformation and deepfakes.
Scary stuff.
Yeah. AI can sometimes generate incorrect or misleading information hallucinations, as they're often called.
Right.
With voice technology, this risk includes creating highly convincing fake audio, or even syncing fake audio to video to create deepfake videos.
Which could be used.
All sorts of malicious purposes. The sources warn about severe consequences, like presenting fake audio evidence in court, swaying elections with fake candidate recordings, or spreading harmful health misinformation using a trusted doctor's voice, for example.
That's deeply concerning. Does ElevenLabs address this? How do they talk about safety?
They do state a commitment to safety. They position themselves as a leader in responsible use through things they call moderation, accountability, and provenance measures.
Okay.
They point to their specific compliance efforts. We discussed SOC2, GDPR, requiring consent for voice cloning, labeling AI content where appropriate.
So they acknowledge the risks.
They seem to acknowledge the tension, yes, the need to build innovative products while also working out how to deploy them safely and ethically.
It really feels like this incredibly powerful technology is moving forward at lightning speed. It brings immense potential, sure, but it also forces these urgent conversations about transparency, consent, job impacts, and how to prevent misuse.
It absolutely does. And that brings us right back to that core question the sources seem to pose. What are the major ethical considerations raised by AI-powered voice technologies, particularly around deepfakes and personal data protection? And crucially, how can companies, regulators, and all of us as users best address these challenges?
We've certainly covered a vast landscape today, haven't we?
We really have.
We've seen the dramatic progress in AI voice tech, moving from, pretty rudimentary synthesis to incredibly human-like, controllable, low-latency capabilities, filling real gaps in how we interact digitally.
We've explored ElevenLabs' comprehensive platform from the core TTS and cloning to advanced conversational AI global dubbing solutions, and how they're scaling through those strategic infrastructure and financial partnerships like with Stripe and Google Cloud.
We looked at the incredibly diverse real-world applications across industries like customer service, media, publishing, accessibility, even that peek into the future of AI talking to itself with Giverlink.
And we discussed their global expansion efforts, trying to tailor the tech for different regions like Japan, while focusing on data security and compliance.
And importantly, we've highlighted those crucial ethical questions that are just completely intertwined with this technology's power and potential. From the need for transparency with things like AI radio hosts, to the serious challenges of deepfakes and managing consent around voice cloning.
Yeah.
AI-powered voice technology is clearly not just some interesting side development anymore. It's actively changing how we interact with our digital world, offering both these incredible opportunities and some really significant challenges.
Definitely. So as you listening, reflect on everything we've discussed today. The sheer speed of the advancements, the breadth of applications from helpful to potentially harmful, and those critical ethical debates.
Yeah.
Maybe consider how AI voice is already showing up, or likely to show up very soon, in your own daily life.
Whether it's talking to a customer service bot that sounds incredibly human, listening to a digitally narrated book, or maybe even encountering media content that might be using AI voices without you realizing it.
Yeah.
It's becoming more and more pervasive.
It really is.
So given the trajectory we've kind of mapped out from these sources, how much of your daily life do you think will be shaped by AI-powered voice in the near future? What excites you most about these possibilities? And what aspects, perhaps, feel the most concerning?
Thanks for listening to Startup Multipliers. Follow now on Spotify or YouTube Music and enable notifications to stay updated with every new episode. See you in the next one.